Story 1.
Mom, I'm going to the river with the guys. Just don't stay out too long, dear, her mother called after her. Anna, with a playful laugh, darted out of the house, her dark hair bouncing. The street greeted her with bright sunlight and a flurry of people bustling about their business. She delighted in the sight of charming houses with red-tiled roofs, bustling market stalls, hay-laden carts, and well-dressed townsfolk. How beautiful the city had become after the fanatics were driven out. No more enormous donations, no more wasted time on unanswered prayers. And most importantly, no more burnings at the stake for alleged sorcerers and witches. With a joyful smile, Anna, dressed in a lovely red dress, headed towards the town square. The gentle breeze caressed her freckled face and upturned nose. Her friends were waiting by the large fountain with fish. As soon as Anna appeared, Vitold, a handsome, broad-shouldered guy wearing a kind of vest with long sleeves and linen pants, stepped forward. "We've been waiting for you," he said with a smile, spreading his arms as if to catch her. With a playful squeal, she jumped into her boyfriend's strong arms. Spinning her around, Vitold lightly tossed her into the air. "I'm going to fall," she squealed, more amused than frightened. "Vitold." "I've got you," he laughed, catching her deftly. The next second, their lips met in a passionate kiss. Vitold's hand slowly slid down her slender waist, settling where it shouldn't, but Anna didn't mind at all. In fact, she placed his other hand on her ample chest, encouraging a gentle squeeze. No more restrictive dogmas, nothing to hold back their feelings. "Get a room," came the sarcastic voice of Lisa, a girl slightly younger than Anna, dressed in a green dress. "Oh, don't mind me. Keep going. We're all curious to see how this ends." Anna pulled away and looked at Lisa with equal sarcasm. "Isn't it a bit early for you to be making such jokes?" "Look at yourself," Lisa laughed. "You only turned 18 a month ago." A passing woman in a shapeless cloak spat angrily through her teeth. "Harlots, witches, you should all be burned." "What did you say?" Clarence, the last in their group, squinted his eyes. Skinny and awkward, dressed in an expensive black cloak, he glared at the woman with rat-like eyes. "Get lost. To your church." "Clarence, not now." Vitold placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. "They lash out at everyone who doesn't want to believe in their God, but we shouldn't respond in kind. At least, not publicly." "Exactly," Anna exclaimed. "So what are we doing today?" Clarence smirked, thoughtfully running his finger along the intricate embroidery on his cloak. "I've got an idea." "Tell us more," Lisa said, intrigued. "Not here," Clarence chuckled. "Let's go to the river. I'll tell you there." Their hometown of Isberg was a small place, so the walk from the center to the outskirts didn't take long. Descending the path, the group stopped in the shade of a small tree by the riverbank. "Tell us, what's your idea?" Vitold demanded. "Look over there," Clarence pointed to the opposite bank with a smirk. Vitold, Anna, and Lisa saw an old, dilapidated church perched on the edge of a cliff. It had been abandoned long ago when the fanatics were first driven out. "It's just a church," Vitold shrugged. "Empty and useless." "Not anymore," Clarence chuckled. "I heard they gave it to some newly arrived monk. He wants to restore the church and even start a congregation." "What?" Vitold clenched his fists in anger. "The churchmen want to come back?" Anna and Lisa joined in his angry outcry. "Exactly," Clarence smirked. "They burned my mother at the stake." Vitold's face turned red with rage. "As a witch. They said she turned into a black cat at night and milked other people's cows." "Ha, the fanatics can come up with anything." Clarence smirked, but Vitold wasn't listening. "They burned her at dawn," he said in a dead voice. "I was trying to get to her, I was only 10. My father held me back, and I will never forget her look of pain. It still haunts me in my dreams. Anna gently placed her tiny hand on Vitold's palm and began to stroke it. Gradually, the young man calmed down. Vitold looked grimly towards Clarence. "I get what you're hinting at. Let's go," he said, heading towards the broad stone bridge over the river. His friends followed their leader. Up close, the church and its few adjacent buildings looked even more pathetic. However, it was clear that someone had been living here for some time. The once boarded-up windows were now wide open and sparkling clean. Next to the church, closer to the river, someone had planted a garden. The small shed behind the church had been sturdily repaired and was clearly being used as living quarters. Deceivers. Vitold looked disdainfully at the bent cross on the only dome. They fool us, then live in luxury. Doesn't look like it, Anna replied doubtfully. Everything seems pretty poor. For now, Clarence smirked. But once he gets started, everything will change at once. Exactly, Vitold snorted. Let's see what good stuff he's got. The locked church door creaked under the weight of the strong young man. Once inside, the friends began to explore the room with interest. Icons of holy men hung on the walls and candles burned on special stands. Benches for parishioners were lined up in several rows. A large image of the Savior hung on the wall opposite the entrance. Look how quickly the monk restored everything here, Clarence smirked. He even hung up his fanatic pictures. No problem. We'll fix that, Lisa laughed, hurling a lump of river mud at the wall. The dirty stain spread across the painted saint's face, dark streaks running down. That's exactly what we need, Vitold laughed, easily knocking over the nearest bench with a kick. Just like that. Anna smeared her finger in the mud and began drawing a beard and mustache on the icon saint. Ha! Clarence spat right in the face of the Savior on the painting. You won't fool anyone anymore. Soon, the inside of the church was a complete mess. Nothing remained of its former cleanliness and order. However, this seemed insufficient to the friends. When there was nothing left to break or draw on in the church, they headed to the shed. Vitold kicked in the flimsy door and squinted at the interior. It's a bit dirty here, Lisa said, peeking out from behind Vitold. Obviously, he didn't have time for his living quarters. He was cleaning his temple. Clarence smirked from behind. Idiot. The shed, which the priest had turned into a dwelling, looked quite pitiful. In one corner lay a pile of hay covered with a blanket. Nearby stood a small nightstand with a plate of food scraps. In the red corner they saw a statue of the Virgin Mary. What a dusty place. Vitold walked straight to the red corner and reached for the statue. What are you doing? Came a worried voice from behind. Clarence, Anna, and Lisa turned around. From the direction of the church, a man in a monk's robe hurried towards them, a sturdy old man with a thick beard and deep wrinkles covering his face. His clear blue eyes sparkled with fierce anger. "What have you done in the temple, monsters?" he exclaimed in shock. "Hey, relax, old man!" Clarence stepped forward, shoving the old man back with a long arm. "Your faith isn't needed here, got it? Get back to your holy city." The old man's lips trembled. Tears appeared in his eyes. "I don't force anyone to come to me. I don't want to bother anyone." "Then don't!" Lisa shouted. Vitold stepped out of the shed, grinning, holding the statue of the Virgin Mary. As soon as the priest saw the statue, his eyes flared with anger again. "Monsters," he said quietly. "Put it back immediately." "Or what?" Vitold smirked. Clarence quietly moved behind the priest. "Will you curse us?" "Give it back, you fiend," the old man said quietly, stepping forward. His dry hand reached out to Vitold. but the young man tossed the statue into the air. It flew over the priest, and Clarence deftly caught it. "Try and take it, old man," Clarence laughed, giving the statue a big kiss. "See, I'm making out with your Virgin Mary. So she's not that pure after all?" The priest let out a choked cry and rushed at Clarence, hands outstretched with trembling fingers. The young man laughed and threw the statue to Vitold. The priest jumped up, trying to catch it, but failed. Come on, old man," Clarence taunted. "There's your saint. Try and take it." Suddenly, the priest grabbed a long rod from the ground. Swinging it, he struck Clarence with a cry, leaving a red welt on the boy's face. Pressing his hand to the wound, Clarence screamed wildly, "You scum!" "Stop, idiot," Vitold barked, but it was too late. Clarence, leaping at the priest, shoved him hard in the chest. The old man staggered back, straight towards the cliff. Flailing his arms, he paused on the edge, but the ground under his feet crumbled treacherously. Without a sound, the monk vanished from sight. A few seconds later, they heard the muffled sound of a body hitting the water. The boys and girls stood motionless. Their eyes were filled with horror and disbelief. They hadn't meant for it to end this way. This was some kind of horrible mistake. Clarence, still clutching his face, cringed and began to sidle towards the bridge, then broke into a run. Sobbing, Lisa dashed after him. Vitold started to follow them but stopped, looking questioningly at Anna. She stared blankly towards the cliff. Her stony face showed no emotion, but her hands trembled slightly. "Anna," Vitold touched her shoulder cautiously. "We need to go." "We killed him," Anna said quietly. "That's why we have to leave," Vitold insisted. "No one saw us. Maybe we'll get away with it." Anna was silent. In her mind's eye were the blue eyes of the falling old man. Full of fear and plea, they tormented her soul, leaving nothing alive. "Anna," Vitold insisted. But the girl pulled her hand away, her legs carrying her to the cliff. She stood frozen on the edge for a few moments. "Anna." Vitold feared she might jump after the priest, but she didn't. Gathering her courage, Anna looked down. The old man lay in an unnatural pose in the shallow water. A bloody stain spread around him. His wide-open eyes stared at the sky. Anna shuddered at the sight of that same expression of deathly horror. "This is how it happens," came a sorrowful voice from behind. Anna and Vitold turned. 10 steps away stood 2 tall monks in black robes with hoods. One held a drawn crossbow, its bolt aimed at the pair. "Do you think they're suitable, brother?" the unarmed monk asked his companion. "The boy, no, but the girl. She's quite interesting," said the crossbowman. "I'm even surprised." "Poor brother Sebastian," the first monk sighed sorrowfully. "Well, the Savior will reward him in the sacred halls. A kind and naive fool with his death, we have reason to conduct a purge. Moreover, we found what we were looking for among his killers. It all coincided so well," the crossbowman smirked. "I feel the hand of God." "Hey!" Vitold spoke up. "What are you talking about?" "Shoot, brother!" The first monk waved his hand. The crossbowman took aim. The string snapped. Vitold lunged to shield Anna. The bolt pierced his shoulder. The young man staggered and fell to the ground. "Vitold!" Anna screamed. "Run to the city!" he rasped, rising to his feet and shielding the girl with his large body. "They're inquisitors! Warn everyone! Hurry!" Anna ran as fast as she could. The sounds of the fight only spurred her on. When she was almost at the bridge, someone strong grabbed her arm. With a powerful yank, the inquisitor pulled the fleeing girl towards him. Anna let out a piercing scream, but the monk quickly jabbed a finger into a spot on her neck. Sobbing, Anna went limp in his arms, Throwing her over his shoulder, the monk ran towards his companion, who was finishing off Vitold. A starless, moonless night. A small clearing in the forest. The naked, unconscious Anna lay in the center of a pentagram. The red-painted lines softly glowed in the dark. Her hair was spread out on the ground, her hands and feet tightly bound to stakes driven into the earth. The hooded figures surrounding her silently watched the naked girl. Their torches burned, dispelling the darkness. After a while, one monk approached, leaned down, and slapped the girl's delicate cheek hard. Screaming, Anna woke up. "You've awakened, witch." "Wonderful," the hooded figure muttered, stepping back. "Where am I? What have you done to me? Why have you tied me up?" Anna screamed, looking around wildly. Cold and fear gripped her mercilessly. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Why? She didn't kill that monk. She even pitied him. Why are they doing this to her? "For your sins, my daughter." As if reading her thoughts, a man in a blue cloak embroidered with gold, the robe of a senior inquisitor, stepped into the lit circle. Anna saw 2 dark eyes on a wrinkled face and a long, neatly groomed beard. "You have sinned against God and must be punished. The corruption has entered your body, my daughter, but do not worry. We will help you. Brothers," he addressed someone beyond the circle, "bring everything needed for the ritual." 2 more monks emerged from the darkness. One held 2 curved knives with cross-shaped handles. The other carried a large jar of white powder. Horror was reflected in Anna's wide-open eyes. She began to understand what awaited her. "You have time to repent, my daughter," the senior inquisitor said calmly. "Of all your friends, you were the most suitable for the purification ritual." He knelt beside Anna, producing a large gold cross from the folds of his cloak. "Your soul is as dark as night and as sinful as sin itself, but there is a chance to save it. Repent. Tell me what weighs on your soul." "But I didn't do anything." 2 wet streaks from Anna's eyes shone brightly in the moonlight. "No, my daughter. You lived in debauchery and sin. You did not attend church. You mocked God's servants. Is that not so?" "It is," Anna whispered through her tears. "You see," the monk nodded gently. "Tell me everything, without hiding anything. About your family, your friends, your city, in as much detail as possible. Only then can the healing power of confession help you." Sobbing, Anna began to talk. About how she and Vitold in the forest. Well, you know, how she and Lisa stole apples from the market, how today the whole group trashed the church, and much, much more. The inquisitor listened attentively, occasionally nodding. His brothers continued to stand silently and solemnly, holding torches in their hands. Soon Anna finished. "Am I saved now?" she asked. "Yes," the senior inquisitor nodded. "Can I go now?" A glimmer of hope appeared in the girl's eyes. "No, my daughter," the monk shook his head. "Your soul is saved. Your body, however, in the name of final atonement, must serve the purification." He stood up and quietly said, "Confession is over. Proceed, brothers." The monks with the knives and the jar of white powder approached the girl. "No, I did everything you asked," Anna moaned. The inquisitors knelt on either side of her. One extended a hand with a knife to her bound body. Cold steel touched her delicate chest. The monk pressed slightly. The knife sank into her skin and moved forward. Anna began to convulse in a horrific scream. Ignoring her cries, the inquisitors carved strange symbols into the girl's body. This continued for quite a while. Soon her entire skin was covered in bleeding cuts. She no longer had the strength to scream, only weakly whimpering. But that wasn't the end. Putting the knives aside and filling their hands with the white powder, the monks began to rub it generously, making sure most of it got into the wounds. The girl exploded into wild screams again. The powder caused excruciating pain, 100 times worse than salt. It seemed the torture would last forever. When the monks finished rubbing in the powder, the senior inquisitor re-entered the circle. Kneeling beside the trembling Anna, he made a broad sign of the cross. "With this I absolve you of your sins, my daughter. Begin," he addressed the brothers with torches. They began chanting a song in an unknown language. "Monsters," Anna breathed out. "Your soul will ascend to heaven, my daughter, and your flesh will serve the Church and the Inquisition. The ancient purification ritual will transform your body and aid in the holy mission of eradicating the faithless." The monk said a convoluted phrase and cast off his robe, standing naked before Anna. Pressing his entire body against the screaming girl, he opened his mouth, revealing 2 long fangs. The inquisitor's head quickly descended to her delicate neck. The monk's choir roared louder. Pain ripped through her throat. Looking into the burning, lustful eyes, Anna fell into darkness. Early in the morning, a large contingent of monks inquisitors and crusader knights, accompanied by sword-wielding foot soldiers, approached Isberg. The soldiers spread out around the wooden stockade surrounding the town. They held long swords, ready to use them against anyone who dared to flee or resist. The mounted knights intended to cleanse the town from within, waiting only for the senior inquisitor's command. The monks, armed with crossbows, huddled together. Among them stood a short figure in a hooded cloak. Beside them stood the senior inquisitor, whispering something quietly. "Your main task is to neutralize the town's mage and prevent the guards from organizing resistance. Appear where our forces are struggling. We don't have many loyal fighters in the Inquisition, so we need to minimize losses. Remember, we can't succeed without your support. Understood?" The figure nodded silently. "Good." The monk turned his gaze to the town, where some movement had already begun. The townsfolk had noticed the battle group and were hastily preparing for defense. The inquisitor exclaimed pompously, "Our godless king has restricted the Church's rights and allowed freedom of worship. He seeks to limit God's influence through the Holy Inquisition, which only proves his connection to the devil. But we see through him, my children." He raised his arms to the sky theatrically. "And now we will burn out one of the hotbeds of vice and sin that arose by the devil's will. Forward, warriors of the Holy and Immaculate Inquisition. Forward, kill them all. Forward." Drawing their swords, the knights charged at the flimsy gates. The gates collapsed under the weight of the steel-plated horsemen, and the riders burst into the town. A black shadow soared over the knights in an incredible leap. The monk's cloak flew open, revealing a naked girl with skin as pale as a corpse. Her entire body was covered in mysterious symbols glowing with blinding white light. Snow-white hair moved as if alive. Her fingers ended in enormous claws. Long fangs protruded from under her upper lip, and her huge eyes with vertical pupils burned with yellow fire. Few would recognize the former Anna in this monster. The creature let out a terrible guttural sound, and small red drops dripped from her long claws. In seconds, each turned into a huge fireball. The blazing projectiles struck house roofs, igniting even things that couldn't burn. The fire drops, like living entities, bit into people, leaving no chance of survival. Landing on all fours, the vampire instantly lunged forward. Her steel-like claws slashed open bellies, severed limbs, and even pierced armor. Like a bloody whirlwind, she raced down the street, leaving behind dismembered, torn bodies. The knights followed, finishing off those who somehow escaped the slashing claws. The townsfolk who managed to escape the town found death by the swords of the slowly advancing foot soldiers. The barracks housing the town guards were the first to burn, and not a single soldier made it out alive. Only the mage put up serious resistance. Blocking the Inquisitor's path, he began to rain lightning and fireballs on the knights. But then the bloody whirlwind rushed at him, and a moment later, the beheaded body fell onto the cobblestones, and the vampire tossed aside the long bearded head. The slaughter ceased only after several hours. The remaining townsfolk were herded into the town square, surrounded by a solid ring of swordsmen and monks with crossbows. The senior inquisitor stepped forward and began to pronounce the sentence. Anna, standing nearby, didn't listen, only carefully examining the kneeling townsfolk. Oh, there was a familiar face. Ignoring the inquisitors' and others' surprised looks, Anna walked straight to the recognized person. Clarence. At the sight of the vampire, the young man trembled all over, but managed to force a pathetic, obsequious smile. "Anna, it's you. I didn't recognize you," he stammered. The vampire stopped in front of him and lifted his chin, looking into his small, rat-like eyes. "Clarence." "What, Anna?" he whispered. "If it weren't for your vile nature, that priest would still be alive. And everything could have turned out differently," Anna said distantly. "Eyes. Let me look into your eyes." With one swift motion, she drove her claws into his chest. With a disgusting sound like a deflating balloon, the young man began to topple backward. Anna looked into his eyes and turned away. Nothing. Emptiness. Dust. She needed something else. The people watched in horror as the young man died, but no one dared move. Everyone seemed paralyzed. Anna moved on along the rows, looking into people's eyes. Despite the wild fear, no one dared to look away, and Anna easily scanned them all. Not it. Not it. There it was. "Anna, don't." Lisa trembled in the remnants of a green dress under the terrifying gaze of yellow eyes. "Lisa." Anna tilted her head slightly to the side. "A sycophant and tattletale, living up to your name. You follow others, lacking your own opinion. If you had shown even a bit of independence, things could have turned out differently. But now, eyes." "What?" "I need your eyes." A sharp claw pierced Lisa's throat. She gurgled, clutching the vampire's hand with her last strength. But then her thin fingers weakened, and she slumped like a broken doll, held up only by the claw in her throat. "No," Anna said, looking into the dead eyes. "Decay and emptiness." Again, not it. She resumed her steady pace along the rows of the doomed. At some point, Anna felt a gaze upon her, one almost devoid of fear. She turned her head slightly and saw Vitold. Her long, dead heart strangely fluttered as if it tried to beat again. Vitold's gaze was very different from the others. Yes, it held resignation. But the young man wanted to face death with his head held high. He looked terrible. Bruises and wounds covered his face and bare torso, and his right arm, where the crossbow bolt had hit, hung limp. "Anna," Vitold said quietly when she stopped before him, "what have they done to you?" "I underwent purification," Anna said in a dead voice. "And now I serve the holy mission of the Holy Inquisition. You all, like me, will go through the purification. Anna, they've clouded your mind." Without responding, the vampire silently ran her hand over the strong man's bruises and wounds. "I must admit, you're a tough guy, Vitold. I thought the monks had killed you." "No," he shook his head. "They just beat me up and then let me go. They said whether I talked or not, it wouldn't change anything." "I see." Anna nodded softly. Vitold, you're the most guilty. You were our group's leader, so you're most responsible for the priest's death. No, Vitold exclaimed. We're not guilty of his death. What? Anna asked quietly. It was an accident. It doesn't matter, Vitold. Her words fell like icy boulders. We're guilty anyway, and you're also guilty towards me. You played with my feelings, but you needed me for something else. No. Tears appeared in Vitold's eyes. I truly loved you. Lust drove you. No. I chose you. I wanted to be only with you. Yes. Anna's claws neared Vitold's face. I want to look into your eyes. Though I'm afraid I won't find what I need there either. She drove her claws into the young man's heart and looked into his eyes. I want to see again. Her fiery yellow eyes pierced into his blue human ones, penetrating through them into the essence of his still living mind. For several seconds, the vampire didn't move, resembling a glowing statue. Then she began to tremble all over. Eyes. The exact same deathly look. Fear and plea tore into Anna's soul, leaving nothing alive. Again. Everything again. Everything repeats. It was as if something clicked in her mind. The induced veil fell from her eyes, and Anna remembered everything. And she was horrified. My daughter, what's wrong? Came the worried voice of the senior inquisitor. Laughing wildly, Anna hurled herself towards him. Knights and monks rushed to protect their commander, but blood-red fog clouded her eyes. In her ears, someone laughed and cried simultaneously, drowning out the screams of pain and terror from the people being torn apart. No mercy. No pity. No compassion. She was a living death machine created for killing. Only she was smart enough to turn against her creators. Anna only stopped when the senior inquisitor's neck snapped in her hands. She looked into his eyes, empty and expressionless, then tossed the body aside. The strange half-laugh, half-cry ceased simultaneously. Anna realized she had been making the sound herself. Everyone in the Inquisitor's detachment died a horrible death. Anna spared no one. Behind her, someone behind her sobbed. Anna turned and saw the surviving townsfolk. They all looked at her with a variety of expressions, from terrified to burning with hatred. But one gaze was different from the rest, filled with tears, compassion, and suffering. The look of a mother. Turning away, Anna let out a wild, animalistic roar. Then she bolted into the darkness. Unlike the utterly burnt Isberg, the half-ruined church remained unscathed. Some time after the massacre in the town, a woman in her 40s, wearing a heavily scorched dress, approached the church. Her face was covered in bruises and burns. A large chunk of her long hair was missing, but the townswoman seemed oblivious to it. Stepping onto the porch, she cautiously peered inside the church. However, the darkness made it difficult to see anything. Gathering her courage, the woman stepped into the unknown. The broken boards of the benches creaked underfoot. The townswoman froze in the center of the room, her lips quietly whispering, "Anna, Anna, daughter, are you here?" From the farthest and darkest corner, two large yellow eyes looked at the woman. "Mom, is that you?" came a quiet voice. "Yes, daughter." The maternal instinct proved stronger than fear, and the woman moved toward those glowing eyes. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she saw a figure huddled under an inquisitor's cloak. Upon seeing her mother, Anna rose to her feet. For a moment, daughter and mother looked at each other, and then tears, red as blood, began to flow from the girl's eyes. "Mom," Anna uttered a half-sob, half-moan. "You came for me. You didn't abandon me. How did you know I'd come here?" "I saw you running to the church from the hill." The woman took her clawed hand in her own. "Daughter, what have they done to you?" The mother embraced Anna's shoulders. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Let's leave, daughter. We'll go live somewhere else and everything will be like it used to be." Anna raised her hand, her empty gaze drifting over her claws. "No, Mom, it won't be. Someone like me won't be accepted anywhere, and you'll suffer with me." "I don't care," the woman exclaimed. "I'm your mother, and I'll do anything for you." "Anything?" the vampire asked. The yellow eyes glowed ominously. "Then kill me." "What?" The mother recoiled, looking at Anna in horror. "What are you saying, daughter?" Anna pulled a knife with a cross-shaped handle from the folds of the cloak. "Because of the spell cast on me, I can't kill myself, and not just any weapon can harm me. But this is a sanctified blade. If you cut this vein," she pointed to her neck, "I'll die quickly and almost painlessly." "Daughter," tears streamed down the mother's cheeks. "What are you saying?" "I want to die," Anna said in a dead voice. "This life is an unending torture. My body is constantly tormented by the ritual wounds. It's unbearable." She glanced at her blood-stained claws. "I have the blood of men, women, the elderly, and even children on my hands. And Vitold's blood, too." Anna wiped 2 bloody streaks from her face and continued in a dead voice. "Eyes are watching me from everywhere. Terrible eyes, even now, from all corners of this cursed church." "What eyes? What are you talking about?" "The eyes of that priest, and Vitold, and death. Please, kill me, Mom. I can't bear this any longer," she moaned, forcibly handing the knife to her mother and kneeling. She pushed a strand of white hair aside, exposing her pale neck. "One strike, please." Anna's yellow eyes bore into her mother's as if hypnotizing her. For several seconds the woman stood silently, tears streaming down her cheeks. Finally, her pale fingers tightly gripped the handle, and her hand with the knife began to rise slowly.
Story 2.
Alaska. Midsummer. Stephen got home in the evening, feeling weary from another encounter with the Johnson brothers. Their recklessness often unsettled him. Insane. They hunt the most dangerous monsters without considering the consequences. That's why their asses are constantly in the other ass, Stephen muttered to himself. He could fill a book with such quotes that might someday sell 1 million copies. For now, though, the hunter parked by the shore, collecting his essentials from his car. He planned to sail at night, heading downstream towards town for supplies. Climbing the gangway, Stephen quickly hoisted it aboard to prevent any unwelcome visitors. You heard right. Stephen Harris, monster hunter, lived on a boat. A cozy floating home fortified with salt, graveyard dust, seals, and amulets. It had just 2 rooms, a main cabin where Stephen took calls, managed paperwork, and occasionally sheltered fugitives or the injured, and a small bedroom. This mobile haven was his cherished escape, offering freedom to move at will. After moving across the deck to the hold, he transferred his gear from the old pickup, mostly knives, stakes, several pistols, and of course, various phones and forged identity documents, which Harris was particularly proud of, as no one had yet suspected the forgery. Checking the fridge, he found some beer reserved for special guests and a couple of sandwiches from the nearest bar, which he started to eat. Exhausted, he yearned for some rest, but was soon interrupted. "Stephen, are you there?" "Lower the gangway," called a female voice. It was Olivia, a tall, tanned woman with hair as dark as night. She had come to catch up with her friend and possibly find some work. Olivia was a hunter from the infamous Johnson family. Breaking free from her overprotective mother to hunt properly was no small feat. "You've gone quite far," she sighed heavily, realizing she couldn't get any closer and had no interest in swimming. "Stephen, I know you're home. Won't you come out?" Olivia shouted, a bit louder this time, standing on the shore. She had dodged numerous traps set by her mother, who was probably frantic by now that Olivia had left without a word. It wasn't fair. Her older brothers could vanish on hunts for months, while she was expected to play the perfect housewife. Sometimes she seriously considered leaving home for good. As the sun slowly dipped below the horizon, its last rays warmed the earth. Night was approaching, a dangerous time since, despite being a hunter, Olivia wasn't invincible. The night belonged to supernatural beings thirsty for blood and murder. Stephen had almost reached his bunk, its softness calling to him like an old friend, when a cry pierced the air, clearly meant for the huntress. He twisted his face into a humorous grimace, but nevertheless pulled himself away from his pleasant anticipation and headed up to the deck, yelling back, "There's no one here. The entrance is closed to the pesky lizard of the Johnson family." Only Stephen would respond in such a way, eliciting a melodious chuckle from Olivia. "This family haunts me too," she said, her smile brightening her tired face. Stephen lifted the gangway and carefully positioned it closer to the shore, right at the brunette's feet. Her presence was always significant, so just in case, he tucked a small flask of holy water into his pocket. Safety first, particularly when you might be unable to defend yourself effectively. "Hey, lizard," Stephen greeted with a sly smile, as was his usual manner. He loved inventing nicknames for Olivia, purely for the fun of it. As the girl climbed up the gangway onto the boat, Stephen had already switched on the spotlight, illuminating the entire deck and startling a few bats that had been resting under the roof. "Welcome aboard," he announced, pulling the gangway in after her. "Stephen, you never change. You've still got that flask in your pocket, right?" "I knew it. Don't worry, it's just me," Olivia responded, her voice betraying a hint of fatigue after almost 24 hours on the road. "I'm not a shapeshifter, and no one's stolen my identity," she added, still smiling. "Let me in and feed me. I'm starving." Stephen opened the door, welcoming Olivia inside. He was more than just a hunter. He was a hospitable host, someone who would never leave a friend in need. The life of a supernatural hunter was harsh, demanding ruthlessness and toughness. Yet Stephen managed to maintain his kindness. His optimism and boundless cheer could brighten any room. Olivia was similar. Her laughter was infectious, and Stephen adored it. "Thanks for letting me in. I love your home. It must be great to have such a boat. You can travel wherever you want. Frequent trips down the river, even fishing whenever you feel like it. All the joys of life. I envy you. The life of a free hunter," the girl said. "But being a hunter isn't all that simple. You always risk your life protecting or saving others. You work for free, conduct your own investigations, dig into various sources, gather rumors. Also, inexperienced hunters are often killed," Stephen thought to himself. He grabbed a bottle of beer from the fridge and handed it to Olivia. She popped the bottle open effortlessly and took a sip. "You're still living as usual, helping others," she observed. "Someone has to do it," Stephen replied. Just then, one of the phones rang. Stephen quickly jumped over the couch and rushed to answer it. "Agent White, North Alaska, go ahead." "What?" "James, I asked you not to use this number. Call the one where I'm Stephen, not Agent White." Stephen's face contorted as though he had just tasted something sour. "How many times do I have to tell you that you need to douse them with holy water and drive a stake through their heart? Even with their head chopped off, these monsters will continue to attack. And calling during a battle, are you out of your mind? How haven't they killed you yet?" Harris hung up the phone and sighed heavily. My brothers again? How often do they drop by? Stephen glanced at the calendar with a mix of curiosity and resignation. I ran into your idiot brothers a few hours ago. They show up here every 2 weeks, more often than you. Olivia sensed that the night would be full of revelations. There was much to learn and plenty of time until dawn, though she couldn't stay long. Not that she wanted to leave, but she didn't want Harris to get in trouble with her mother later. Yet she often missed conversations with a true hunter, someone wholly dedicated to their cause. The core of a hunter's life is about supporting one another. Without that, the country would be in chaos. Demons, werewolves, vampires. There were many, and they were formidable. And there are fewer and fewer hunters as the years go by. When Olivia helped her mother at the bar, she learned much and forged valuable connections. Although most patrons tried to win her over, none had succeeded yet. Ella, her mother, made sure no one got too close to her daughter. Another burst of laughter filled the room. You should come to the bar more often. I think you're the only man my mom wouldn't try to scare off right away, she said, her voice tinged with amusement. It was completely dark outside now, with only the moon and stars lighting the way, and the soothing sound of water lapping against the boat. It was in moments like this that Olivia remembered her first hunt, when she was severely beaten by young vampires. If it hadn't been for Stephen, she might not have survived. And her mother had cursed so loudly at the bar that no customers came for 3 days. All of Stephen's relatives had died when he was just 15 years old. Now, at 34, he couldn't even recall his father's face, who had taught him to drive, or his mother's, who had taught him to knit. Olivia felt a deep sympathy for this man who lived alone, never starting a family or having children. Stephen had devoted his entire life to hunting monsters and assisting other hunters. What's new this time? What's happening in the monster world? Will you share some information with me? Gently batting her eyelashes, Olivia smiled in her usual charming way, revealing her pearly whites and tilting her head slightly. There was no need to ask. Stephen would tell her everything anyway. Indeed, the hunter relished a good conversation. Stephen mused. Can't seem to remember. Olivia gave him a look of mock offense. I'll tell you, just don't give me that look. Ella's going to kill me someday. She's told me 100 times not to say anything, thought the man. But as usual, he didn't listen to his own inner voice. Stephen, I knew you wouldn't let me down. Just make sure not to tell Mom, or she'll really give you a hard time. Stephen chuckled, recalling how Ella had scolded him last time he had divulged a little too much. She still remembers it every time she calls him to inquire about her fidgety sons. The boys rarely called Ella directly, all because of her daunting demeanor. Well, a few of us headed north, past Utqiagvik. Werewolves went berserk there. 10 hunters are now in the Chugach forests, where demons and witches are stirring up trouble. A few more are down south, and the rest are scattered across the central region, tracking and eliminating threats. Many often come to me for advice. Stephen pulled a pillow from the cupboard and tossed it onto a small armchair. His eyes were heavy with fatigue, yet he resisted the urge to sleep. It's the usual for us. Track, confront, and sadly bear the losses which are mounting alarmingly. Stephen quickly shifted the topic, as if reluctant to dwell on the grim aspects of hunting. He remembered that he hadn't asked about Olivia's mother. Ella owned the bar where hunters gathered to unwind from their grim routines, and like Stephen, she was a pivotal figure in the hunters' network. How's Ella doing? Has she scared off all your suitors yet? You know her? She'll never change. Even her sons criticized her for being overprotective. but it was just Ella's way of showing her deep love and fear of losing Olivia, much like she had lost her husband. "I'm worn out and could use some rest. You wouldn't mind if I crash here tonight, would you?" "Do I have a choice?" Stephen replied with a wry smile, realizing with a start that dawn was not far off, and he should have been asleep hours ago to get at least a few hours of rest. "Then you take the room, and I'll find a spot out here," he said. Stephen wouldn't have let the girl leave anyway. She needed a break from her relentless adventures, and Ella wouldn't mind knowing her daughter was safe for the night. So, Stephen showed Olivia to the room and decided to call the bar. Dialing the familiar number, he already anticipated their conversation. "Ella? Hey, it's Stephen. What the hell are you calling so early for? Did something happen?" "No, nothing happened, just wanted to let you know. You don't need to worry. Olivia's with me. Tell her when she gets back. I'm putting her on a short leash. And if she came to you to dig up any dirt, keep your mouth shut, or I'll have your head. Hey, no need to yell at me. I've warned you. If she gets so much as a scratch..." "Ella, calm down. She's not a child anymore. I'm taking her on a simple scouting mission. You can't keep her caged forever. She might just run away. Everything will be okay. Trust me." "Stephen, don't you dare hang up on me, you hear me?" With a resigned sigh, Stephen ended the call. "Looks like your mom practically gave you the green light to go hunting. Well, not exactly alone. Wow, you were brave. I will light a candle for you." Stephen flopped down onto the sofa chair where he had earlier thrown the pillow. With the guest taking over his usual sleeping space, he settled for the chair. "Try to get some sleep. Remember, a tired hunter is a dead hunter," he said, closing his eyes. "I'm sorry you have to sleep in that chair." "Sweet dreams," Olivia murmured as she left. Yawning one last time, Stephen fell into a deep sleep, clutching the pillow. Olivia went into the room, collapsed on the soft bed, and fell fast asleep, not forgetting that under her pillow there was a silver knife covered with sacred symbols that her father had given her when he was still alive. Olivia managed about 5 hours of sleep. Her body had likely adapted to such brief rests. Rarely did she sleep longer. After sheathing her knife, she stretched while sitting on the bed and yawned again. Tying her hair into a high ponytail, she tiptoed out of the room, careful to make the bed. No missed calls or voicemails appeared on her phone, so her mother wouldn't be out looking for her. Seeing Stephen still asleep, she chose not to disturb him, and quietly stepped outside. The sun had already climbed high into the sky. A new day, a new narrative. She sighed, knowing her words would fade unheard. Sometimes it all felt like an endless dream. "It's so peaceful here," she said aloud, lost in her thoughts. Olivia contemplated what her life might have been like if she hadn't become a hunter. Perhaps she wouldn't be risking it so frequently to save others. But hunters aren't born. They are forged. "Good morning," Stephen greeted her as he appeared. "Hope you didn't leave anything important in your car. We're about to head out," he said as he climbed into the captain's cabin, started the engine, and activated the autopilot he had proudly built himself. "We'll sail for about 40 minutes, maybe an hour, but no longer. We were expected to meet someone. That's all I can say for now," he noted, looking out over the river. The boat smoothly glided downstream, heading towards a vibrant shoreline. A little later, Stephen returned to the cabin, glanced at the maps strewn across the table, and began comparing them with the route he had previously selected. According to his calculations, the vampire was hiding exactly there. He started preparing his arsenal meticulously. He cleaned his gun, loading it with bullets that had been sanctified with prayers and drenched in holy water, then checked his pouch of dead man's ash and slipped several knives into his belt, designed to fit into a custom holster. He also stowed a few wooden stakes in his tall boots for easy access. Meanwhile, Olivia, who was still on the deck, decided to check her own equipment. She inspected her gun, which she always kept at her side, and her silver knife, etched with sacred incantations. Extra bullets were secured on her belt for quick reloading, along with small wooden stakes and a single painkiller tablet, just in case. She felt ready for anything. An hour later, the boat docked at the pier. "We've arrived," Stephen announced with a hint of excitement, stepping onto the deck and slinging a large bag filled with weaponry over his shoulder. A rugged figure was already waiting for them on the shore, a local guide who was briefed to update them on the latest developments in the small town. "I'm glad you decided to help us." "Welcome," the man greeted them warmly. "I am here to meet you." Stephen smirked and shook hands with the bearded man, who sported a distinctly rugged look. His tattered vest showcased muscular arms, and his baggy jeans with large pockets, along with his long hair and beard, added to his wild appearance. "I am Harry. But before we proceed, may I ask, is the young lady with you also a hunter? Sorry, but you, miss, seem quite young for this." "Don't let appearances deceive you. She is the devil in the flesh," said the hunter with a completely serious face. "Well, I'm sorry, Stephen. I promise to behave from now on," the girl responded with a disarmingly sweet smile. "Forgive my initial caution. Our town has become exceedingly dangerous lately, and I was reluctant to put such a charming young woman at risk. But I have no doubts about your skills." "Don't worry. We are here to help. We just need to eliminate that hellish creature, and I am confident the town will prosper again," Stephen responded graciously. The bearded man led them along the road, sharing his concerns. "I've heard a lot about hunters. Unfortunately, I lack the skills and strength that you possess, which are necessary to save my hometown. That is why I called for your assistance." "And when did this vampire first appear in your town?" Olivia inquired, her gaze surveying the layout of the town. The sparse buildings hinted at previous supernatural attacks. "About a month ago." That was all the information needed. Stephen was aware that about 3 months prior, the government, along with various secret agencies, had organized a significant operation to purge the country of vampires and werewolves. Many were captured or eliminated, and the survivors had fled to remote areas like Alaska. Because of this, the demand for hunters had increased in this region. And for the same reason, Olivia's older brothers hadn't returned home for over a month. "About a month. You were quick to catch on?" Stephen commented, nodding towards the dense forest ahead. "How long will it take us to get there?" Olivia asked, her voice laced with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. "Not long, just a 10-minute hike into the mountains. I won't go further. I promised only to meet you, not to lead you directly to the monster's lair," the bearded man replied, shaking his head slightly before departing as swiftly as he had arrived. "Are you ready, lizard?" Stephen asked with a teasing tone. "Don't ask silly questions, and you won't get silly answers," Olivia replied with a playful smile. Stephen rolled his eyes and began leading the way towards the forest, Olivia closely following. With each step, the forest seemed to grow thicker and more ominous. Soon they stumbled upon the first grim sign, a severed female leg clad in a stocking which had fallen from a tree directly onto Stephen's head. What a mess. "Why did that idiot hang a leg?" Stephen grumbled, wiping his face in disgust. Judging by the decomposition and smell, this leg has been here for over a month. Maybe the victim accidentally wandered into the forest, Olivia speculated, finding a dark humor in the bizarre situation, as it was not every day you saw such a shocking expression on your companion's face. Stephen knelt down to examine the leg more closely. It was brutally torn off and bore signs of being gnawed on. Clearly, the vampire was also a cannibal. Blood alone wasn't satisfying its grotesque appetite. "Disgusting creature," Stephen muttered, voicing his thoughts. Poor girl, left without a limb. Her screams must have echoed through the forest that night. But it doesn't matter now. People are naturally fragile and curious. She surely brought this upon herself, venturing into the woods at night, perhaps lured by some strange sound, Olivia mused. "Stephen, don't you think that Harry didn't tell us everything? He seems too nice at first glance, and besides, this monster has been here much longer. It's just a hunch," Olivia added thoughtfully. "They always hide something. First rule of the hunt, never fully trust anyone." "All right, let's keep moving. We'll find out what's really happening here," Stephen responded firmly. Having found the first gruesome remains, they expected more ahead. Stephen took out his gun and disengaged the safety, ready for what was to come. After a few hundred meters, they discovered an abandoned house. It needed to be checked, though if the vampire was hiding inside, it would have sensed their presence by now. Olivia gave Stephen a quick nod and pointed towards the house, indicating she would enter first. He needed to cover her if necessary. With her gun at the ready, Olivia stealthily made her way into the house. Stephen didn't have time to warn her of the potential dangers or stop her. The determined brunette had already slipped through the door. Sighing resignedly, Stephen followed, drawing his own weapon as he entered the shadowy interior. Opening the door, Olivia stepped inside, her eyes scanning the surroundings. Bones and pieces of flesh were strewn everywhere, and the walls were smeared with blood, clear evidence of the gruesome struggles that had taken place. She was correct in her assumption. This house was indeed the lair she sought. For a moment she was distracted by the horrific decor, and when she turned around she found herself face to face with the monster. Panic surged within her, but it didn't paralyze her resolve. Noticing the weapon in her hands, the vampire swiftly pushed her against the wall, its piercing gaze locking with hers. The pistol slipped from her grasp, now lying just out of reach. The creature, using telekinesis, flung her aside again, this time with less gentleness. Olivia's head struck the wall hard. Stephen entered the house just in time to see Olivia collapsing unconscious. He momentarily lost his composure, rushing to her side, oblivious to the lurking danger. At that moment, the vampire attacked him. It tried to manipulate him with telekinesis, but Stephen was protected by a protective amulet. Thwarted, the creature resorted to using its claws. With a swift strike, the vampire sent Stephen flying across the room, where he crashed into a table, breaking it under his weight. When the vampire lunged again, Stephen, despite his disorientation, managed to fire his gun, hitting the monster in the abdomen. With a furious roar, the vampire fled, grabbing a bag of weapons that lay nearby as it escaped. Overwhelmed, Stephen lost consciousness. The hunt had turned grim. The hunters lay unconscious in an abandoned house, while the monster, wounded but still dangerous, likely lurked nearby. Vampire regeneration was not instantaneous. It would need time. Stephen woke up an hour later. It was already dark outside, so it was pitch black inside the house. He fumbled for the flashlight in his pocket and, upon turning it on, immediately directed the beam towards Olivia, who lay still. "Olivia?" Stephen's voice was hoarse as he slowly approached her. He hovered his hand over her lips to check her breathing, relieved to feel the faint stir of air. Her breathing was shallow, but steady. She was alive. Everything would be okay, he reassured himself. His head throbbed painfully, and each breath was a struggle. Touching the back of his head would confirm it. His hand would come away with blood. He gently tapped Olivia's cheek, then more firmly. "Olivia!" he called louder, urging her to respond. He knew they didn't have much time. The monster could return at any moment. A gentle slap brought Olivia slowly back to consciousness. A pained groan escaped her lips. The monster's blows had been severe. Her head felt like it was splitting open. Her vision blurred with pain. She squinted, trying to focus, and gingerly touched her temple, wincing at the sharp pain. She couldn't believe she might die because of a young vampire, no smarter than a wild beast. Being bested by such a pathetic creature was an insult to hunters everywhere. "Stephen, are you okay? Did you kill it?" she managed to ask. Seeing him disheveled and injured too, her surprise turned into concern. "What? He got you too? Damn, are you serious?" "No time to judge. I was trying to save you," Stephen replied, his voice tinged with frustration, but also relief that Olivia was awake. They needed to regroup and prepare. The vampire would undoubtedly come back to finish what it had started. Slowly leaning against the wall for support, Olivia rose to her feet. The impact from being thrown against the wall had left a sharp pain in her back, which was now asserting itself with every movement. Despite the discomfort, she scanned the room, her eyes finally landing on her pistol, which had skidded to a stop behind an old, half-broken wooden chair. The sight fueled her anger. "We need to finish this, no matter what. If my brothers and Mom, if they find out, I don't even want to think about it." "How about you, Stephen? You seem even worse off than me. I have a pill. Take it. It'll help with the headache." "Keep it for yourself. I'll manage," the hunter replied gruffly, sitting down and then standing up, testing his coordination. Olivia swallowed the painkiller and retrieved her pistol. "How far do you think this monster could have gotten?" "I'd suggest my brilliant idea, but you wouldn't agree to me being bad." "It's probably still close by," Stephen speculated. If Stephen had entertained the idea of using her as bait, they could set a trap for the vampire, but it was a tremendous risk. Olivia knew the monster feared fire, so they needed a plan that involved luring it and setting the place ablaze. "Burning down the house while I'm inside sounds like suicide. It seems I have a serious head injury since I'm suggesting such nonsense." "Don't even think about it," Stephen said sharply, a tone that brooked no argument. "No arson, especially not with you inside." After a moment of silence, Stephen pulled out his pistol and knife. "Let's start with this." He took a bag of graveyard dirt from his pocket and quickly sprinkled it over all the doors and windows except one. It was doubtful this would stop the vampire, but it might slow it down. "We'll figure something out, but you're not staying in this house." "I'll stay. I'll wait for the creature. You need to find a safe place. First, seal the window with dirt, then set it on fire." "Why should you stay in the house instead of me?" Olivia's tone was tinged with dissatisfaction, but there was no time to argue. The vampire could return at any moment. She found herself holding graveyard dirt in her hands, and suddenly an idea clicked in her mind. Maybe everything would turn out like in a thrilling movie where the hero jumps out of the window at the last second. Stephen tossed his favorite lighter to her. He flashed a smile, then stood up and headed to the pantry through the kitchen, likely looking for gasoline, kerosene, or alcohol as a last resort. Returning, he carried a canister of gasoline and bottles of whiskey. He tossed the bottles to Olivia. "Maybe we'll come up with another plan," Olivia asked, hesitating as she held the bottles, her mind racing for alternatives. "Olivia, listen to me very carefully," Stephen said, his tone unusually grave. "This is no ordinary vampire. I was wrong. It's of ancient lineage and possesses telekinetic powers. My amulet protected me from its initial attack, but I'm not sure how much longer it will hold. Here, take the amulet. It's more crucial for you now, and if I don't make it out, you must leave immediately. Dante, wait for me. Do you understand?" For the first time in her life, Olivia felt a genuine fear while standing next to Stephen. He always appeared so robust and unyielding, like an indestructible fortress. "Don't talk like that. It's just a vampire. No matter its ancient blood, we'll handle it together." "I'm not leaving you behind," she responded, her voice choked with emotion. A lump formed in her throat, and despite the dull ache that still clouded her head, her vision had cleared. "Go. Dante, wait around. When it breaks in, I'll confront it." Stephen started to pour gasoline in the kitchen, creating a hazardous environment. A single spark could set everything ablaze. Heeding his instruction, she began dousing the living room, then stepped outside to continue the task, ensuring to leave the designated window free from flames to provide him an escape route. After completing her rounds, she re-entered the building. "Be careful, or I'll never forgive myself," he said solemnly. Throughout these moments, Olivia's eyes were fixed on Stephen, and in a sudden burst of emotion she hugged him tightly, as if she might never have another chance. She then forced a smile and averted her gaze. The thought that he might not survive haunted her. Holding an extra bottle, she tore off a piece of her shirt, fashioning a makeshift Molotov cocktail, and handed it to him. A contingency plan just in case. "Good luck. I want to be far," she reassured him. "I hope to see you again soon," Stephen whispered back, watching her retreating figure with a mix of hope and dread. Olivia quickly left the house and concealed herself nearby. Time seemed to slow as the vampire approached the house, cautiously scanning its surroundings, then vanished inside. Seizing the moment, Olivia dashed to the doorway, sprinkling graveyard dirt across it and not neglecting the window. Inhale, exhale. She lit the bottle and hurled it into the house. Her heart pounded violently against her chest. Her hands trembled visibly from the intense nerves. Clutching the final bottle and lighter, she prepared for his escape, ready to throw it at the crucial moment. A wild scream pierced the air, causing her heart to skip a beat in terror. She was genuinely scared. When this ordeal was over, they would certainly have a reason to celebrate. For now, all she could do was wait. Meanwhile, Stephen braced himself inside, trusting that the amulet would keep Olivia concealed from the vampire's senses. He was not overly concerned for her safety, but prepared himself for the imminent showdown. "Where are you, monster? I can't wait all night," Stephen muttered impatiently under his breath. As expected, the monster burst into the house shortly after. But this time, Stephen was prepared for the encounter. Agilely dodging its sharp claws, he maneuvered around the vampire, and at that precise moment, a Molotov cocktail flew into the room. The vampire tried to dash for the door, but found it unyielding, sealed by the graveyard dirt. A wild roar filled the space, shaking the walls, forcing Stephen to cover his ears with his hands. Despite the chaos, a satisfied smile played on his lips. His trap had successfully sprung. "Stephen, don't kill me! I haven't done anything wrong!" the vampire suddenly pleaded, its form shifting before Stephen's eyes, morphing into Harry. the bearded man they had met at the pier. "So, you've been masquerading as a young vampire all this time, huh? Ancient and fearless of the sun. For the first time in my life, luck is on my side. I know who you are. You're Dracula's younger brother," Stephen deduced aloud. "Please, I'll do anything you ask. Just let me go." "Remove the graveyard dirt. Allow me to leave," the vampire bargained desperately. "How many have you killed over your long life?" "I'm well informed, you know. Nearly 30 people have disappeared in this town just this past month, all you're doing. We're going to burn here together. Give my regards to your brother in hell," Stephen declared, his eyes wild with a mixture of fury and triumph. The fire spread quickly, the structure of the roof threatening to give way at any moment, and yet Stephen was nowhere to be seen escaping. Olivia, stationed by the window through which he was supposed to emerge, prayed silently. The heat inside was intense. Flames danced around, reducing everything to ash. This dilapidated shack would burn to the ground, taking the malevolent force responsible for countless deaths with it. Stephen had promised her he would make it out, and there he was, dashing from the back of the house and leaping through the window. Olivia, who had been nervously tapping her fingers and muttering to herself, rushed forward to help. "Idiot, what took you so long?" She managed between sobs and tears, her relief palpable as she saw him safe. For the first time, Stephen saw her in such a vulnerable state. "Lizard, don't cry, I'm okay," he reassured her gently. "Idiot," she muttered again, and impulsively kissed him. The hunters sat watching the remnants of the shack consumed by flames. Stephen was elated. He now had an epic tale to recount to other hunters at the bar. Yet a looming concern cast a shadow over his joy. The impending conversation with Olivia's mother, Ella. Known to be more formidable than any demon or vampire, the thought of facing her was more daunting than any supernatural threat. Yet for the first time, Stephen felt resolved not to back down. He wanted to start a real family, with a wife and children despite the challenges that might bring.